and it's easier than remembering your password. I don't even know my own password. You can hold a gun to my head. I will be like, I don't know.
Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another Nordic episode of Tech Break, the video podcast brought to you by TD SYNNEX. And today I'm delighted to have a guest from Microsoft, Kjellberg, Cloud Solution Architect.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So how does a typical day at Microsoft looks for you?
So what I do, I work in our partner group. So I work with supporting the partner community together with our partner development managers and our partner technology strategists. And I'm a cloud solution architect. So I'm the SME in our group when it comes to security, compliance, and identity. And we support our partners in building new offers, training, how to go to market, connect them with our mutual customers, and make sure that they are up to date on everything Microsoft security.
So SME being the subject matter expert, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had a show a couple of months ago when we had your dear colleague Richard Funk on the show, and we kind of alluded to the discussion that there are a lot of abbreviations on Microsoft, and I made the joke. So when you start there, do you get this really fat encyclopedia with all the abbreviations to learn?
Actually, it's digital.
Oh,
yeah. So we actually have an internal site where you can search for the abbreviation, but the problem actually is that now we start reusing them, so you're not really sure anymore. But it takes about 3 to 4 months, then you speak fluent Microsoft. So after a while, you get to learn what they are, and then you can sort of build your own abbreviations. It's
almost a language of its own.
It is,
so to speak.
But I actually don't think that's just for Microsoft. I think most organizations has their own languages, probably.
That sounds familiar, coming from TD SYNNEX.
Yeah, but there it's German.
Yeah. So I'm going to start just setting the scene. Mm-hmm. So we will be discussing cybersecurity among businesses and also going into the Mission 65 initiative and other topics around secure posture management. Mm-hmm. So just by setting the scene once again, how would you, so in this current state that we are now, looking at cybersecurity among businesses, how does it look like today?
Well, that's sort of like asking, in Sweden we have a saying, like, hur långt är ett snöre, or like, how long is a string? But it's highs and lows. If you look at the overall picture, there's quite a few companies whose basic cyber security hygiene is quite low. I would say, if we make an analogy to your own personal hygiene, they're only showering maybe once every 6 months or so. So it's high and low. Some people shower 2 times per day. Some people shower once a month. Some people shower once a year. So, but in general, there's a lot of improvements that can be made.
And with the energy prices, I would believe that people shower perhaps less today.
Yeah.
I see. So going on to the Mission 65 initiative. Yeah. So what made Microsoft start with that?
Yeah, so first off, I would like to just say that Mission 65 was this is my fault, because I was the one who spoke with our partner community.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
But that was an internal project name. So Mission 65 was that we have something called Secure Score. And Secure Score is let's say a service that helps you analyze how well have I configured my environment. We have several different versions of Secure Score. We have one in Microsoft 365 that sort of more looks on end user computing. And then we have in Azure, in Defender for Cloud Service, we have Azure Secure Score. So Mission 65 is looking at the Azure Secure Score. And we had a goal to help the customer that has the lowest score to be at minimum 65. So we should actually call it Mission Minimum 65 or at least 65 or something like that, because Mission 65 sort of makes it sense that 65, that's good. But no, that's, I'm not allowed to swear, so, but bare minimum 65 should be the maybe the right word for this project. So we want to help customers get to a security posture, and that's on a scale from 0 to 100, and we want to get them to 65 at minimum.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
So that gives you the answer to the question, what that term stands for. It's the minimum score.
That we would love to see.
Yeah. So let's say me as a partner or as a business, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but you'll get to tell by yourself. So when you reach 65% in your secure score, I mean, a little bit being on a rhetorical question, is that good enough? Does that mean that you don't need actively to work with your security posture anymore?
Thank you for these very obvious questions. No.
I'm going easy on you. It's just the beginning.
No, but if we think about, as I said, going back to hygiene, like you can't just say that, yeah, well, I showered in January, I don't need to shower anymore. I'm done for this year. No. So security is something that requires persistence. You need to work and monitor your environment continuously. Sure, automation and our services can help you a lot, but you still need to monitor your environment for alerts and stuff like that, and that can come up. And also, most environments are changing. So you will have onboard new users, people will leave, you might have consultants coming in, consultants leaving, you onboard new applications, you build something new. So if you're not continuously working with this, even if you make everything perfect and you reach 100 today, and you then don't do anything for a year, that score is going to continuously drop. So this is something that you need to continuously working with, actually.
So that could be, for instance, setting up like test environments in your cloud or virtual machines that are used for a purpose, or what can these
changes be, you mean? Well, as I said, like it could, a lot of things is new hires and people who are leaving. So how do you onboard these people to the right applications? People who are changing roles within your company, so they will maybe shouldn't have the same access that they had before. So they will get new access, but the old access they had should be removed. You might onboard a new application. A lot of infrastructure still relies on, a traditional virtual machine and an application that's installed on that. There's patches coming out to these, patches to the application layer. And all of these things continuously change and set the bar higher and higher and higher. Or not saying that, not higher, but like you need to manage your updates and operations around this. And that is still a challenge. If you go to PaaS services, you will get away from some of that. Sort of like patching and stuff like that. But you still have to manage the identity layer and how do you access these PaaS services.
So going into, we're starting to go into a little bit around the challenges. We've been into governance and identities. So would you say that would you like to talk about a little bit more about challenges when it comes to addressing end customer security?
Well, I think so. One of the things that we really want our customers to become better at, it is to enable multi-factor authentication. We can still see that maybe somewhere around 20 to 25% don't use that. And by enabling multi-factor authentication, you can block out I've seen various different numbers, but something around like 99% or 99.9% of all identity-based attacks, which in itself is sort of a majority of the attacks. So enabling MFA for all users, super important. Obviously, then also back to basic security hygiene, patching and updating your operating systems and your applications when there's a new security patch that's out. But in order to do this, we also need to make the productivity environment acceptable for our end users. So helping them with easy way of using MFA, like maybe using Windows Hello, where you just open your laptop and you have an enroll device. It's your biometric face that logs you in. That's 2 devices, multi-factor, perfect. And it's easier than remembering your password. That's what I have from Microsoft. I don't even know my own password. You can hold a gun to my head. I would be like, I don't know. So those are the things that I would say is probably the most important. But obviously you need to have like a antivirus or an EDR or something like that to protect your endpoints. But protecting your identity, since we're moving from sort of a on-premise environment where we usually protect our network, that was our like security perimeter. Today, I mean, COVID taught us a few things. We are now, everyone can basically work remotely. And that means we're usually working outside of the network. So, and we're also using cloud services, which is not part of our network in the same sense as was traditionally. And we might even publish our own internal on-prem line of business applications to the cloud and authenticate through a cloud IDP. And so protecting your identity, that's the frontier. That's where that's the new security perimeter. That's what we need to protect. And I mean, there's models or like frameworks to think about, like zero trust and stuff like that. And they relate back to identity. Nobody should sit with more privileges than they need at the moment. So nobody should be a constant admin. Like if you have a admin account or you're an IT administrator, you shouldn't sit with that all the time. Instead, you could use some service like PIM, or Privileged Identity Management, where you elevate your privileges for a short period of time. And then when that period of time is over, you're back to being a normal user. And then you have like the tracking of, okay, who did what, why. You have a justification, why I need to have a higher level of administration rights. And all of these things can help you secure your environment and protect your identities. And obviously, use multi-factor authentication. There's no excuse to not using it. I don't think any one of you who are looking at this now would accept that, in order to get to my stock account, or say in Sweden would be Avanza or Nordnet or something like that. I use username and password. It's okay to go in and sell my shares. No, nobody would accept that. You require Mobilt BankID or a two-factor authentication for that. And we need to think about our IT environments in the same sense, because what we basically have is a line of credit to consume stuff. And if you have an intruder that comes into your environment, they might spin up stuff like Bitcoin mining, but not for you. So they're mining Bitcoin for themselves. And to be completely frank, like mining Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency in the cloud, that's a bad idea, because the resources will cost more than the value of the cryptocurrency you get back. However, the shit idea, sorry for the language, a really bad idea is to let someone else do that on your tab. And that's a increasing problem for all cloud environments. This is not just for Microsoft, but I mean, regardless of where you are, if someone else comes in and mines cryptocurrency on your tab, you're just going to get a bill, and that bill can be pretty high. And you are actually responsible for that as an end customer. And if you're a partner who's reselling, you're actually giving them a line of credit because they pay you afterhand. And if this bill is too high, or maybe you have a contract with them where you are their extended IT department and you haven't secured their environment correctly, they might hold you as a partner responsible for this. So there's a business risk and a financial risk and a reputational risk for partners when it comes to this. So protecting your environment and protecting your identities. Obviously hackers still hack in, but usually they log in because they've come over phishing, like a phishing email, someone gave out their identities. There's I think somewhere between, I've read numbers for everything between 10 and 20% actually hand out their username and login in a good phishing email. That's a big risk. That's more than you think.
Yeah, I absolutely. Like 10 to 20% might sound low, but if you have a number of recipients which exceeds, let's say, in the hundred thousands of so, and
but even if it's just 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we in the Nordics, we have been quite, I wouldn't say safe historically, but it was quite easy to identify a phishing email, right? It was bad Swedish, bad Norwegian, or bad Danish, bad Finnish. The AIs that did the translation of these generic ones were really shitty.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think anyone has missed the hype around, for example, ChatGPT. And today you can actually have a generative AI that creates amazing emails, amazing text in Swedish. And we also have these targeted campaigns where they have someone who's a native speaker. And yeah, more and more people are susceptible to click wrong.
So still, we talked about 20 to 25% not having some sort of MFA solution enable or that function enabled. That would obviously, if I'm not mistaken, increase the secure score quite with a bit.
Yeah, so the reason why we chose 65 as a target is because you can get to 65 with basic cybersecurity hygiene. So MFA, which can be free. If you turn on security defaults in Azure, it's for free, so you don't need to pay for it. By patching and updating your machines, turning off external ports and stuff like that, that's open. So basic cybersecurity hygiene using the recommendations that's available for you for free in Defender for Cloud can get you to 65%. It doesn't have to cost you more than your time. In order to reach 100, you might need to invest a little bit in some other security services, which I really recommend doing because, I think the average cost of a intrusion in 2021 was $4.24 million or something like that. So was that like 45 million SEK, something around
that's
that?
for one average breach.
For a breach. And that would include everything. I mean, maybe it was ransomware, maybe it was loss of production, you couldn't sell something for 3 months. I mean, and that's obviously for bigger customers. But I've seen numbers that in 2018, I think we saw that the average cost for an SMB account that had a breach was around $100,000 or around 1 million SEK. And I know a lot of small businesses that couldn't sort of survive that. 1 million SEK extra, that's enough to make a small company maybe go belly up. And that's sad because security doesn't cost nearly that much. So it's a very cheap way of improving your or reducing your risk.
So, I mean, speaking about the SMB segment, where we see that we have a lot of joint CC partners that have SMB as that segment, is there any advice that you can give them here today where to start highlighting this problem with their end customers? Yeah,
so it all starts with awareness. Where without knowing the problem, it's hard to sort of know where to start. So as a partner, as a reseller of Microsoft services, do an inventory of your customers. I think, I don't know if we can give that link now, but we have a script that you can use that's available on aka.ms/mission65. Where you actually can download a script and there's instructions there. You need to have a identity that has security reader rights, yada yada yada, but all of that is documented, and that will give you an inventory of what's the secure score for the customers I have, and then you can take that CSV file, upload that as a template into Power BI, and get an overview. That will give you a one-off sort of view of my customer estate. Then you know where to start. I would say, I think a lot of them, I mean, going back maybe 10 years, we talked about VM sprawl because we started virtualizing more and more VMs. And it was so easy to spin up a new VM that, and then you never took it away afterwards. So these were eating the system resources of our data centers, but we didn't know who was the owner, and operations couldn't delete them. So everyone just ended up buying more hardware, and a lot of it was just standing idling, and that was a problem. I would say we probably almost have a similar way now in the cloud, because it's so easy to spin up new cloud environments, but we forgot about the sort of the operational part and governance part of, okay, if I'm not using that subscription anymore, have I deleted it afterwards? Or have I just deleted the resources and it's still there? Because if I just delete the resources, it might not cost anything anymore. But if I can still log in with a user that has admin rights to that subscription, that could be used for cryptojacking. And that could cost me a lot of money for something that I don't even use. So I need to think about even that those sort of lab test environments, I need to protect them and have them in my governance and monitor them so I don't see excessive use. I mean, we have stuff like cost management. I mean, I think we will come to that, and fraud notifications and stuff like that. But you need to monitor these environments as well. I think I might have lost my thread, but what was the question again?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things that CSP partners can do. You can start with an inventory where we stand, and then you can go on from, let's say, identity management, and then go on into cost thresholds and absolutely.
I would also like to sort of, we have I mean, this is now pre-15th of March when this is recorded, but the 15th of March, so this has probably been, you see this after that, so it's recorded, but we will have a webinar from Microsoft Western Europe, together with a partner that has developed a best practice together with some of my colleagues, where you can have a continuous monitoring of this. Because this relates back to what I said before. Security isn't something that, okay, I do this now once and then don't do it again. I need to continuously monitor this. So we have a best practice that's presented at that webinar. I think you can reach that webinar at aka.ms CSP Secure Score dashboard. Maybe you can put in like a link of that here.
We will definitely do. Yeah, absolutely. Make sure not to miss that, but March 15th, that is. So when it comes to also, I would also like to highlight to the dear audience today, when it comes to configuration, Oscar, which I would assume that's a very important part. We TD SYNNEX also provide our click-to-run solution, which is called SMB Fraud Defense, which help you as a partner more easily being able to automate without going into the portals of Microsoft, setting up a tenant analysis, enabling secure defaults or conditional access, budget control and policies, and others. Please note that some of these features might require an Azure P2 subscription, but it's a free service which kind of makes things a little easier. And if you want to set rules for multiple tenants, is there something you would like to add there regarding the conditional access?
Yeah, so I actually saw this solution demoed for me the other day, and
hope you liked it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it really helps someone who isn't. I mean, maybe you're more of a reseller of services, and also going into multiple different tenants might be complex. But so it helps you from a configuration standpoint, and then make that more effective. And it helps you do the basic things in a very sort of streamlined fashion. I liked it a lot. There's some things you need to think about. In order to use conditional access, you need to use either a Azure AD P1 license, but with a P2 license, you can also include risk analysis by user behavior and stuff like that. So with the P2, you get even more, and then you also get, for example, the PIM functionality I talked about before, that you can use to elevate your access for a short period of time, among other things. But I think this service, or this sort of click to run, it only puts in these rules into passive mode, or sort of monitoring mode. So you need to actually go in and enforce them afterwards. So it creates the policies for conditional access. So you can try them out. You get a log after it, and you can see, everyone sort of works. And then you can go in and enforce them afterwards. So it's not enforced, it's just in passive mode initially.
Right.
So that's an important thing. When you've done that, in order to actually get to security, go in and enforce them afterwards. But make sure that everything works still. So go through the logs and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So we are reaching the end of today's episode. Is there any last words that you would like to leave the audience with today?
I mean, I've been saying this now for quite some time. Use MFA, please. we've been talking about this since I started at Microsoft 10 years ago. Multi-factor authentication has been something we've been sort of trying to enforce and trying to sort of get people to use. We need to get that out. People need to start using it. That's the number one security feature that will reduce the likelihood of attack by a landslide. I'm not saying it will make you 100% secure. Nothing can say that. If any security vendor say that, you will be 100% secure, they are 100% lying. Because no one can say that. What we're trying to do is sort of build layers of security. So you can monitor it and find out if an intrusion happens, and then you can stop them on the way. So that's why it's important to have multiple layers of security. But the number one feature would still be multi-factor authentication, especially since, hackers usually log in today because people get susceptible to phishing email. This happens all the time.
Yeah. So a little silver lining and a silver bullet for cyber attacks. Oscar, I would like to thank you so much for being with us today, and hope to see you again soon.
Yeah. Thank you.